Right this second, there's a lot on the line, playing out live all across our country. And it all leads to this. Who gets power? Who controls Congress? And what will this president's last 2 years be like? Tonight, the voice of Americans will be heard, and ABC News is listening. This is Your Voice, Your Vote, anchored by George Stephanopoulos, with Diane Sawyer, David Muir, and Martha Raddatz, Jonathan Karl, Fusion's Alicia Menendez, Dan Harris, Yahoo's Katie Kerr, and America's best political news team. Now reporting live from ABC News Election Night headquarters in Times Square, George Stephanopoulos.
Good evening and welcome to Election Night 2014. Millions of you have taken charge today, telling us what you think about the state of our country, the quality of our leaders, what you want from the final 2 years of the Obama presidency. You put your rights to work with your vote. It's our privilege tonight to work through what it all means. I'm joined here in the studio by World News anchor David Muir and our election team, correspondents and experts with deep experience from both parties, and reporters on the ground in the most crucial states. Every member of Congress on the ballot now, and ABC News can project that Republicans will continue to hold the House. 36 governors on the ballot, too, and tonight's grand prize, the Senate. Remember the number 6. That's how many seats Republicans need to take control from a field of 16 competitive races. And you see from that map what Democrats are up against coming into this election. They're defending 13 seats, Republicans only 3. And as we come on the air tonight with polls closed in 44 states, the GOP well on its way. Already 4 seats have switched from Democrat to Republican. Here they are. In Montana, Congressman Steve Daines has defeated Democrat Amanda Curtis. This wasn't really a race after the incumbent Democrat Senator John Walsh was forced to withdraw over a plagiarism scandal in August. In South Dakota, former Governor Mike Rounds has defeated Democrat Rick Weiland. There was an independent former Republican Senator Larry Pressler in the race as well. He took more votes from the Democrats. Republican Mike Rounds wins. In Arkansas, Democrat Mark Pryor defeated by a freshman Republican Congressman Tom Carton, also a veteran of the Iraq War, Harvard Law graduate. Big win there for the Republicans. And in West Virginia, Congresswoman Shelley Moore Capito becomes the first Republican senator from that state in more than 50 years, the first woman senator from that state ever. And David Muir, one of the things we're seeing, we have 4 switches so far for the Republicans, and what we're seeing is those Republicans ride a wave of discontent.
No question, a sour mood across this country, George. You can't underestimate some of these numbers. Let's go right to the board here. On the direction of the country, when voters were asked, is this country on the right track or the wrong track? Look at that, 65%. On the issue of trust, just 2 in 10 American voters say the government does the right thing. 78% say only sometimes or never. And look at this. President Obama, his job performance, 54% disapproving of his job performance, which is why we're seeing Democrats running away from him during this campaign, Republicans trying to run a campaign against him.
That's exactly right. Our chief White House correspondent John Karl here as well. The president pretty much invisible in those battleground states for the Senate.
Well, he didn't campaign there, but he was everywhere in the ads. The Republicans made this a campaign about President Obama because he goes into the election at his lowest approval rating of his presidency, and he was even more unpopular in virtually every one of the key states.
And one of the things we're seeing, our chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz as well, Americans think tonight the economy is still their #1 issue, but that did not dominate the campaign dialogue in the final weeks. Foreign policy ended up doing it.
It did, because foreign policy dominated, and we had Ebola, and we had ISIS, and ISIS really hit home. The threat of terrorism really hit people where they vote. So going forward, it's not going to change. The president is going to have to deal with this. Anybody who gets elected tonight is going to have to deal with it, too. And there aren't a whole lot of plans out there. There's not a whole lot of anything different, but the voters are still trending towards those Republicans.
Let's bring in our political analyst, Matthew Dadd. Matthew Dadd, you've worked in presidential campaigns. You've worked for both parties. And this is something that does happen to presidents in their 6th year. People are tired. People are impatient. People are angry.
You know, this happens to them a lot in their midterms. And President Bush faced this in the second midterm of his presidency. It looks like now we may have a president that loses in both of his midterms. He's really good at running his own election, a presidential election, but the midterms have not done well. To me, this is not a big wave so far, but he is going to face a much more adverse Congress. No matter the final results of tonight, he's going to face it in the Senate, and he's going to face it in the House.
Alicia Menendez from our sister network Fusion here as well tonight, tracking social media. What are you seeing?
everyone taking to Facebook. In fact, in the last 24 hours alone, 16 million people have been talking about this election on Facebook. Of those, 68% women, 32% men. You could say that women are dominating the conversation on Facebook. Here's what people are talking about: taxes, marijuana, Obamacare, education, and ISIS. Big national issues dominating. And here, perhaps my favorite meme of the day, the voter selfie. People taking photos of themselves after they voted. They say that this can increase civic participation. We will see.
We will find out if it did. We have some more results coming in right now. State of Louisiana, it's going to be a runoff. Democrat Senator Mary Landrieu is going to face a runoff against Congressman Bill Cassidy, the Republican. That runoff will be on December 6th. That's because neither candidate got 50% of the vote. I got to go to Donna Brazil right here, Democratic strategist. Louisiana, your home state. Mary Landrieu has been through many runoffs before.
This is a very tough election season for Mary Landrieu. She's done it before in 1996, 2002. President Obama is not popular in Louisiana, but you know what? Mary Landrieu has staying power. I think she will do well in the runoff.
But she's definitely going into that runoff as an underdog right now. We have another result we want to talk about right now. This is a big one for Republicans. Their Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, in Kentucky, defeated Allison Lundergan Grimes, the Democrat. He's coming back for a sixth term. First went to Washington 50 years ago as a Senate intern, has never lost a national race. And, of course, he is hoping not only to be the Republican leader of the Senate, but also to be the Republican majority leader right there. And John Carl, this is a man that President Obama may be forced to work with even more than he has in the past.
Very well could be the majority leader by the end of the night. And this is somebody the president has virtually no relationship with. You know, the president had developed a relationship with Speaker of the House John Boehner, but as minority leader, Mitch McConnell was somebody that almost never met one-on-one with the president. That will sure change. As a matter of fact, the president has invited all the congressional leaders down to the White House on Friday.
Bill Kristol, Republican strategist, also an ABC News contributor. Mitch McConnell, as I said, has never lost a national race. Doesn't give away too much in his demeanor, but he will be a formidable opponent for the president, adversary, if indeed he does control the Senate for the Republicans.
Yeah, and winning his own re-election, where he was thought to be seriously challenged by an attractive, younger Democratic candidate. The Clintons came in for Allison Grimes several times, winning by what it looks like 13, 14, 15 points. That will give him standing, I think, among his colleagues. It's not going to be easy to manage that Republican caucus in the Senate. Assuming it's a majority, there'll be a lot of different points of view about how to conduct themselves, a lot of senators running for president. But McConnell has enhanced stature after tonight.
Okay, let's get some more results right now. This is a good one for the Democrats in New Hampshire. Jeanne Shaheen, the Democratic incumbent, has defeated former Senator Scott Brown. Of course, Scott Brown was a senator in Massachusetts, but he was trying to run in New Hampshire this time around, could not overcome Jeanne Shaheen, a Democrat with long ties to the state. And this has a lot of Democrats breathing a sigh of relief. David Plouffe, of course, used to work for President Obama, his campaign manager, senior strategist in the White House. This was the one the Democrats were looking at. If Jeanne Shaheen lost in New Hampshire, a Democratic state, this was going to be a Republican wave.
Yeah, they would have won 8, 9, 10 Senate races if that fell. So I think, and also the Democratic governor there was reelected. We saw a Republican governor lose in Pennsylvania. So I think that this is going to be a good night for the Republicans, but I think the voters are sending a message not just to one party, but to both parties. Voters are deeply frustrated about the economy and about the lack of cooperation and progress.
Two other battleground states holding for the Democrats right now. In Minnesota, Senator Al Franken, the Democrat, former comedian on Saturday Night Live, going for a second term, defeats businessman Mike McFadden. Last time around, he had to go to a recount. Not this time around. He is projected tonight. And in Michigan, open seat left by Senator Carl Levin. Congressman Gary Peters, the Democrat, has defeated Terry Lynn Land, the former Secretary of State, the Republican. Did not run much of a campaign. I want to go to Nicole Wallace on that one. Now, in Michigan, a strong Obama state. He's at about 50%, 50% approval there, but Republicans had put a lot of hope in Terry Lynn Land.
And Republicans, we're going to now turn to our surrogates later, but this was a place where everyone wanted to go in and prove that their message and their brand of republicanism would play well in that state, because it is the state Republicans are hungry to do well in again. To me, what's exciting at this point in the night is that we're going to be able to talk about a new batch of Republican women. And I know we're still watching and waiting for Iowa to come in, but Joni Ernst ran what Bill Kristol called the best Senate campaign in the country, and I take his word for it. We have some women that have run some key House races that I stood up and did a little hooting and hollering. Barbara Comstock is going to the House as a Republican from Virginia. So I'm excited at this point in the night.
But what you saw here in Michigan was that being a woman wasn't enough for Terry Lynn Land.
Right, but it's not the whole story. And I think there are women who have done well. And I think that when we have all the results and we look at the whole picture, there will be more Republican women in the Senate.
You brought up Joni Ernst, Iowa, one of the most crucial races right now. The polls have just closed at 10 o'clock. We don't have enough information to project it right now, but I do want to go out to Cecilia Vega, our correspondent out there on the ground right there. Joni Ernst, also a combat veteran, and boy, she really got a lot of people's attention with that ad early on where she talked about castrating a pig.
Boy, George, you're right. That ad that went viral, this is the race to watch right now. These polls, as you say, just closed. A complete wild card out here in Iowa. On one side, we have Bruce Braley, that Democratic congressman who had a number of gaffes during his campaign out here. One of them was called the political gaffe of the year, where he was overheard in what's being characterized as dissing Iowa farmers. And then Michelle Obama, First Lady, came out to campaign for him out here, mispronounced his names a number of times. Then on the other side, you've got Republican Joni Ernst, this newcomer out here, a Senate up-and-comer, as you said, an Iraq War vet. You've seen her in these campaign ads riding that Harley. She talks about packing a gun. And the ad that went viral, more than 600,000 views today, I just checked it out, where she talks about wanting to go to Washington. She mentions growing up on an Iowa farm, castrating hogs, and she says she will do the same thing in Washington to make Washington squeal. All eyes on this race right here. I do want to tell you, George, we just got some new numbers in that talk about Joni Ernst and some early polling that was done. And she seems to be doing very well among rural voters. That's what this is going to come down to out here. You mentioned men versus women, women versus men. It's been a really interesting race to watch. I've been talking with voters. She is polling really well among men. And so this is, we're going to wait until we've got a couple of, hopefully these numbers will start to come in soon, and we're watching.
That is definitely what we're watching. And just to underscore how crucial this state is, the Democratic leader Harry Reid has said he will not be the leader of the Senate if the Republicans win that state of Iowa. Another surprise tonight right now. We want to go to the state of Virginia right now, where the incumbent Democrat Mark Warner is facing the former Republican Party chair Ed Gillespie. Warner looked like he was in pretty comfortable shape in the closing weeks of this campaign, but Gillespie came on hard, and this one, John Carl, has really unnerved Democrats. They didn't think it was going to be this close at the end.
It really has. Mark Warner won independents last time he ran by 38 points. Right now, he is losing by 1 point with independents. This is a state that, you know, Obama won twice. Nobody really had it on the radar screen. I wonder if an ad that ran on Monday Night Football this past Monday might have had a factor here. You know, the Redskins, the whole issue of whether or not the Redskins should change their name. Ed Gillespie ran an ad suggesting that his opponent, Mark Warner, was not doing enough to protect the Redskins' name.
We are watching that one very closely, and of course, if that one fell from Democrat to Republican, that throws off the map. All but guarantees Republicans can take the Senate. I do want to go to Nate Silver right now. You might remember his name. Nate Silver made his name back in the 2012 campaign forecaster for 538.com when he nailed the 2012 election, getting every single state right. You were forecasting the re-election results coming into tonight as well. Had the Republicans at about 76%, I believe, chance of taking control of the Senate. Where does it stand right? I take that back. 74% taking control. Where does it stand right now?
So based on states that have been called so far, Democrats look okay. The problem is that they have a lot of shoes that could drop on them at any moment. Cory Gardner, the Republican in Colorado, is ahead so far. It's counted a fair amount of its vote. Pat Roberts is ahead in Kansas, the very close race in Virginia, the very close race in North Carolina. So our model's conservative on election night. We're waiting for you guys to make a call. But personally, I think the odds of the GOP winning the Senate are considerably higher than 75%.
And of course there have been 4 switches so far. Republicans 4, the 6th they need right now. David Plouffe, I want to go to you on this state of Virginia. That is a surprise. There's a state that you all worked very hard for President Obama. President Obama took it twice.
It's a big surprise. I think what you see is, I think because it wasn't believed to be a very close race, Democratic turnout, my understanding, is our biggest problem right now. And Gillespie's actually doing pretty well in some of the exurban parts of Virginia that President Obama did well in twice. So I think it's a big surprise. Based on the vote that's out, I think Warner probably survives, but it's going to be very, very close. And I think Democratic turnout is a real story there. You look just to the south in North Carolina, which is very close. Kay Hagan, who was in a very close race, I think is going to hit her turnout goals.
North Carolina, that's a state we're going to be looking at as we come back. We're also going to look ahead to Colorado. That's a key state where the polls have just closed. A lot more coming up. We'll be right back with more of Election 2014 after this.
You're watching live coverage of Election Night 2014 on ABC.